in. Those in the windshield wipers snapping out the tempo, playing perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling.
Welcome everyone to the conversation. This is the 6th episode, and this week's topic is unionizing workers who cannot be unionized. Very interesting, huh? Don't go nowhere. My guest today is the founder of Freelancers Against AB5. I do in the already in the description are the blog rolls that many of you have asked me for a few times after the fact, after I have Karen on. So they're already in the description. Check it out. There's the stories of the people impacted by AB5. There's the careers that suffered or disappeared because of AB5 in California, and also a link to her group. So my guest today is the founder of that group and the one and only Karen Anderson. Karen, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's always fun to come back to the podcast.
Yeah. This is, I looked because I did it for Kim last time too. I looked. This is your 10th time. You guys are both. I mean, I don't have a lot of people that of guests that have been double digits. I don't. There's you and Kim, and I'm even trying to think if I take the round table out of the mix, I don't even know. There's under 5.
Well, there's so much to talk about with independent contracting that you could have 50 episodes and still not hit the tip of the iceberg.
So Kim wanted Kim's in the chat. I see. So is John Lopez. So is Bubba Sue and Traveler. Thank you. But Kim wanted a gift or she's like, do I win something for? So I gotta find something for the two of you because you guys are my wolf pack, and I guess let's just get right into this because I don't know. So California AB5, Prop 22, and now AB 1340. Gig workers in every state. It doesn't matter if you don't live in California. You should still stick around and listen to this because so much is going on in every one of our states that's even a little bit different from one another, but it all leads down the same trail. When we follow this trail, it all goes to the same place. It's maybe a little bit different of outcomes, but not really. In the end, the point in the end is to end everything good, everything positive about the gig economy. I know a lot of people can complain about the money or the oversaturation or this, that, that's a discussion for a different day. What I'm saying is the purpose of many of these groups is it doesn't make sense, but just to end this for all of us. So Karen, where do you want to start today? Because we're going to go through it all. So,
well, we should probably catch some of your viewers up on just the AB5 saga from the beginning to kind of set the stage for why Prop 22 came about. Mm-hmm. And AB5 was, as you mentioned, a law that was enacted in January of 2020 in California that basically presumed that anybody who's a worker, no matter who you are, no matter what profession you're in, you're an employee, unless you're the person that hires you can prove otherwise. So, and the only way to do that is to pass this very strict ABC test, which is the strictest test in the nation. And most people can't pass it. I mean, you just can't. So,
in short, I don't have it in front of me today, but in paraphrasing, A is that you're free and clear of the company telling you how to do your work. Mm-hmm. B is that you don't do the same thing that the company does. So like Rideshare, if you work for Uber or Lyft, or if you do work for Uber or Lyft, they wouldn't pass that B prong because they're a rideshare company. So if you're a rideshare driver, that doesn't work.
Well, that's how the state of California interprets it. That's not how Uber and Lyft interpret it.
But I'm saying this strict ABC test, the B prong is where most people just...
Yeah, the B prong in California says that work has to be outside the usual course of business of the hiring entity.
Right.
And then the C prong is not that easy to pass either. You have to be customarily engaged in that occupation. So
that's right. Yeah. So the C prong is that you do that work on your own and you've landed some of your own clients and you can prove that you do that outside of for rideshare, that you do it outside of Uber and Lyft.
That you're customarily engaged. So if you occasionally volunteer, if you brought in for a one-off to volunteer for a running event, to hand out awards or pass out bib numbers or everything, you're not customarily engaged in that.
Right.
So therefore, you have to be made an independent contractor to work. So
Right.
the
That's
whole
what I'm saying. You couldn't get a friend to just one time in the year
right.
go, hey, Steve, give me a ride to the airport. Okay. Like that. You're going to need to prove that like a good, I don't know what, if there even is a percentage, because part of probably what we'll get into today is that one of the big arguments, and it should have been known from the beginning, is that Prop 22 isn't enforced. So, I mean, or
I don't
that
know what
the
you mean
Prop
by
20, or that nobody looks into it. And I guess, like, how would you? There's been the dirty stackers. And for those that don't know that term, I told Karen it yesterday. It's, the gig workers will know, but just let me roll through it real quick. It's when you take like a Grubhub, a DoorDash, and an Uber Eats all at the same time, then defined by active time, which I call fake time. During 1 hour, you could get 3 hours of 120% of minimum wage if you played that card right. And a lot of people did.
Well, what people need to understand what Prop 22 is in its entirety and in its essence. So basically, everybody was thrown overboard in 2020, and a lot of people needed exemptions, and there was a big battle, and there, hundreds and hundreds of professions were, falling through the cracks, and people were losing their careers and their livelihoods right, left, and center because their clients couldn't hire them on as employees, and they could no longer contract with them as independent contractors. So you're talking about everybody from musicians to writers to photographers to healthcare professionals, nurse anesthetists,
Mm-hmm.
every kind of independent contractor you can name, real estate agents.
Yep.
Anybody and everybody was under the purview of AB5 unless you had an exemption. So without going into all the weeds about that, Rideshare was not exempt, and they were specifically not exempt from AB5. They had to be.
We should probably say all gig apps.
No, not all gig apps. Rideshare and app-based delivery.
Yeah.
You've got other gigs, like dog walkers. They have a
sure. Well, but honestly, oddly, in fact, WAG got an exemption, but Rover didn't. And Rover's the one where you have to go out and get your own clients.
Well, it really depends on
so,
if they're able to pass. The exemptions come with fine print, right? So
Mhm.
WAG falls under this business or this professional service or referral agency category of exemptions, which you have to pass 11 requirements in order to be able to operate as an independent contractor. So maybe Rover didn't live up to some of those caveats and requirements, and that's the dirty little secret of AB5 is that people think, oh well, they exempted 100 professions. Well, in theory maybe, but in practice no. A lot of them can't jump through all the hoops that would require to be able to take advantage of that exemption. But be that as it may, Uber app-based delivery and app-based delivery services like Instacart and Rideshare like Uber and Lyft were explicitly excluded from any kind of exemption in that referral category of exemption. So they were told to convert all their drivers to employee drivers. Simple as that. And the state started to go after them with lawsuits in the middle of about 5 months after AB5 went into effect. And then so the Protect App-Based Drivers and Services Coalition came up with Prop 22.
Which is okay. Yeah. Right.
Is an initiative, a ballot initiative, so that the voters that following November of 2020, which was a statewide election, could vote to allow rideshare and app-based delivery drivers to remain independent contractors. That was the essence of Prop 22.
And I should probably clarify that the group Karen just spoke of is also known to many gig workers as the Flex Association. It is Uber, Lyft, Instacart, DoorDash, Uber Eats, or Postmates for some reason, which Uber owns. I don't know why they still classify them, but there's a few others too. So I mean, it's the big ones. It's the giants.
Right. They spent over $200 million getting the initiative on the ballot and advertising it and promoting it and getting the voters to vote during the pandemic, I might add. And it passed with 60% of the vote. Well, it came with a bunch of different little perks along with the essential fact that the drivers could remain independent contractors, which if it hadn't have passed at all, you guys, some of these drivers complain, like you were saying, they complain about the active time and the 120, and it doesn't add, it's not the purported perks and don't live up to the promises and all of that. Put that aside. If Prop
Yeah.
22 hadn't passed at all, you would be an employee. You would have to be made employees by these companies, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole of it probably would never have worked out, actually.
Right.
And in fact, the state was made. I mean, the courts ruled in favor of the state lawsuits against them,
Mm-hmm.
and they had until October 22nd to get a stay on that ruling so that they could wait for the voters to come in and rescue them. And that's what happened. So it passed by almost 60% of the vote. And Prop 22 includes little
which let's note, because it's worth noting that that's pretty insane for California. I know, Karen, you live there, but I'm just saying, like, it's pretty intense that the people of California voted 60% in favor of whatever union or whatever Uber and Lyft and all the rest were pushing them, whether it be right or wrong. I'm just saying it's pretty insane, because normally they'd be like, no, but they all knew this meant their ride to work.
Well, we were in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody had to stay home because we were under lockdown. So people didn't want to give up their deliveries.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to give up the option of being able to go out on the road and make some kind of money when they lost their job, to the pandemic. And also the state overshot.
Or like all the people from AB5 pre-pandemic had their career torn away from them. Right.
But the state strategically blew it because they came after them with such a shock and awe campaign that it was headline news that Uber and Lyft were this close at the 11th hour of leaving the state altogether. And people were going, no, we don't want to lose our rideshare and delivery during a pandemic. So all of those things contributed to why it passed. And plus the campaign, the Protect Drivers and App-Based Services Coalition, their campaign was really sunny and it was just plastered everywhere. You couldn't turn on the TV or the radio or anything and not see that advertisement.
Mm-hmm. I didn't ever get to see it. I think I saw a couple of YouTube ones, but because they were ads, people weren't even able to forward them to me. So they'd say, hey, did you see this? And I'd be like, because it's not a video you can forward. So it would just be in the commercials of YouTube. But a couple people captured some of the recordings. So I was able to see some.
They were very sunny, very positive. They never mentioned the word AB5. They didn't talk about other professions. They didn't talk about repealing AB5. All they talked about was allow these drivers, 80% of whom want to remain independent contractors, to be independent contractors. So the voters voted for it. And so immediately, SEIU goes judge shopping in Alameda County and finds a Judge Frank Rorsch, I think his name is.
I used to call him Roish, or when I had Vina Dubala and I said Roish, and she didn't correct me. And I know she's in with him in some level.
Well, he is a Superior Court judge in Alameda County, and he instantly declared Prop 22 unconstitutional.
Right, yeah.
In August of 2021, I believe. And,
so yesterday, you and I had a brief conversation. It was actually a decent conversation, but some of it was personal. But we mentioned the fact that I asked you, I said, how on earth did, let's just say between the state and the Flex Association, how did 400 lawyers not see this that this was going to be unconstitutional before it ever went to the vote of however many million people voted in the 2020 elections?
It was ultimately deemed constitutional. Anybody can take a lawsuit anywhere to any judge, and things can get overturned, based on whatever. So, it went through the appeals process, and the appeals court in March of 2023 determined that upheld Prop 22. They rejected the lower court's decision, and they upheld it as mostly constitutional. except for one little tiny little provision. And that's what is leading to this little AB 5 1340 bill.
Yeah.
But basically, they said it doesn't interfere. The argument was, oh, this interferes with the legislature making workers' comp laws. Well, they said it didn't because the voters have plenary power to do that. They said it was a violation of the single subject, whatever, and the appeals court said no. Although it was a 3-judge panel, it wasn't a unanimous decision with the appeals court, but it was a unanimous decision with the California Supreme Court in upholding Prop 22.
Exactly.
It was upheld back last year in 2024. Eventually, it was completely upheld. But that part,
right, because that would have changed actually if I recall our last conversation about, or not the last time you were on, but our last conversation directly about this, that would have actually been impacting AB 5 too.
No.
I mean, had it been declared unconstitutional, wasn't there something that you and I came up with?
Oh, if it had been declared unconstitutional, AB 5 would have applied to rideshare, and immediately they would have had to be made employee drivers, and then they would have probably had to pay all of these back fines and penalties for all that period of time, which, by the way, they are on the hook for the period of time when AB 5 went into effect in January 2020 to the period of time that Prop 22 was passed in November of 2020. So they're that 9 or month period or whatever, 10-month period. They were deemed to have misclassified their drivers during that period of time because they didn't have Prop 22 wasn't retroactive for whatever.
Well, I mean, but especially let's use Uber. I know in the 11th hour, we've talked about this so many times. In the 11th hour of the last day of January, they're like, do we get to operate until Prop 22 is voted on, or do you want us to just unplug right now? And California said, no, we can't have that disruption. So in my book, it was almost like going fine until it's voted on. You're not being held to it.
Well, Prop 22 wasn't a thing in January. It was the 11th hour in October.
No. I mean, when it was, we'll leave the state.
We'll leave the state. Well, they always
end of January.
If we have to be made employees.
Exactly. That was end of January when the state gave them that deadline, and they said, no, we'll leave.
Well, there were lots of little different deadlines, but at any rate, the real push that came to shove.
Yeah, was the people voting.
Was in October, right before the initiative went to the voters. So everybody was on pins and needles. They didn't know which way it was going to go, and it was just there were just all these bots that were coming into my group from various, Rideshare Drivers United people. Just all of a sudden, we just got attacked from every which way you could think of. Vina Dubal and all her minions just started coming after us. And I wasn't even, I'm not even, as the leader of Freelancers Against AB 5, rideshare is just a small portion of the many, many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of professions that are impacted by AB 5.
Oh, yeah.
So, my feeling, and a lot of people in my group said, well, why should we vote to give them an exemption when we can't have an exemption? So I'm going to vote yes or vote no on Prop 22. And I posted something to my group and I said, look, it doesn't matter what you think about rideshare or not. AB 5 sucks regardless. It should be subjected on any industry, including rideshare. And if you vote no on Prop 22, you are endorsing AB 5 as a law that should be imposed on an industry. And people kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I get that. It takes a minute to wrap your head around that one. I mean, because you have to be shown, listen, why do you want to put all these people in a firing line and kill all them too?
Well, the drivers themselves.
I mean, we need to deal with AB 5, but there's no reason. I mean, the right thing is that none of us are classified or having to deal with this. If they're going to get exempt from it, good for them.
Well, let's say figuratively that Prop 22 didn't pass or that it was found unconstitutional. What would that mean?
By the Supreme Court, because it was by a lower court.
It wasn't.
No. I'm sorry. I'm moving to Prop 22 now. Okay, go ahead.
But it was, let's say Uber and Lyft decided not to leave the state and then just convert people into employee drivers. How would that work out for everybody?
Well, Uber and Lyft wouldn't. I mean, we knew that even a lot of people tossed around the franchise idea, even that they came publicly out and said, and some people might go, well, what they say publicly doesn't mean anything because they just do what they do. But yeah, it does in this case, because they said we can't work a franchise model and we will never do a W-2.
Right. So,
I mean, the churn rate's too high. You'd have some people come on for less than 7 hours. That would then be an employee who can get unemployment.
it would just be a mess. They're independent. It's an independent. Their business model would not survive that. They'd have to.
They wouldn't even try. I really believe that. I really believe they wouldn't have even tried.
So Prop 22 is very important for the rest of the nation because it kind of put a firewall a little bit on this kind of thing spreading to other states right away. You know, because had it not passed, and I mean, we would be talking about a whole different ballgame. Who knows what we would be talking about today, 5 years later.
Yeah.
So,
and that's where, like, when you said put some things to the side, and when I said it too, like, I don't like Prop 22, but in this case of our discussion right here today, I'm putting that to the side.
So you don't like the fact that Prop 22 allows you to remain an independent contractor in California?
No, that's the only part I like about it.
Well, that's
the other, like the 120% and this and that. I think it just gave the platforms more control. Because when you talk about a fake time called active time, you're saying, I have to have more hours. You've just now double turned over the keys to a company that you hate and said, you're in charge of getting me hours. So I mean, they're just going to make your active time even less. So
what is your option as a driver to fight that?
For me, if I was in California, I wouldn't have cared. I would have done it just because I wanted to stay IC status. Anything else didn't matter to me. Just
to catch up the viewers, Prop 22 includes these provisions that, you know, the drivers be paid 120% minimum wage, and minimum wage
active time
of active time varies from city to city, you know, so
16 to 19 something in San Francisco. Right? Yeah.
So the coalition claims that drivers make an average of $37 an hour in California. And then you have, you know,
active
the usual.
Time. We got to keep doing this, and it's not my fault. I just go by real time, but we got to do it.
Well, I could be on the app.
Active time.
Now. I could be on the app right now and call it active time. Why should I be paid for that? Just sitting around?
No, you shouldn't. I'm just saying when they say the 37 something, they're saying, well, if you worked 3 hours that day, the average would have been this, but you might have been on the app for 10 hours. Again, that's why you multi-app. That's why you mix in other things. You're responsible for when you walk out your door till you come back in it, that you're making money all the time. Don't count on the app to always do that for you. In fact, you and I talked about this yesterday. There are just, I know times in my market not even to go out because I'm not going to get anything.
Well, each side is going to fudge the numbers the way that most benefits them, because then you have the UC, Berkeley, labor, whatever, saying that they only make $7 an hour active time or whatever, you know, but be that as it may, that's baked into the law.
Sure.
It's baked into Prop 22, and that's what's in the code. And then the other thing they added was health stipends, which are probably cheap stocking stuffers that are
I call them Obamacare with an Uber bow.
Right. I call them. I compare all of the, and then there's also accident insurance. There's a whole bunch of different little things.
Yeah, there's a little perk about some time off too if you work like 10 million hours.
Not knowing anything about, you know, I've never done rideshare as a hobby or anything, you know, but I compare.
But you've taken them, right? I mean, you are experienced in using it.
I always ask the driver, how do you like what you do? And they love it. But anyways, the real Christmas present under the tree is with Prop 22 is that you can remain an independent contractor. The cheap stocking stuffers from the dollar store are the purported perks that don't live up to their promises.
Mm-hmm.
But I have always said they should have just made Prop 22 about independent contractor status and not have muddied it up with all of these things, because people are going to complain. It's never going to live up to people's expectations, and there's always going to be something to gripe about with that.
You and I were talking about a very, very small group yesterday, but that is a thorn in the side too of every. They always are. They're always made to look to be this huge group in California, and they're not.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of those people, one of which I've had on this podcast a long time ago,
Nicole
and many of, yeah, I didn't say it. She said it. But she, if you look into that, just so you guys know, she gets paid $200,000 a year. She is not. She doesn't wear jeans and a ripped T-shirt every day. She just does that on the days that the protests happen.
She works for the county of Los Angeles. I really sincerely doubt that she drives for Lyft.
But like she attends every 25-person Lyft strike at the LAX airport.
And she would be the one that leads us to AB 1340, which is this amendment bill or whatever you call it to allow rideshare drivers to collectively.
Is it amendment? I mean, I know it is amendment, but I want to call it like additive. I don't even want to use amendment because it's like, hey, let's just keep piling crap on crap.
Well, I call it amendment because that was what it was called in the original provision that they severed from the rest of the prop. They mostly the courts, the Court of Appeal and the California Supreme Court upheld a majority of Prop 22 as constitutional, but they severed the part out of it that said that, about the legislature not being able to make laws about allowing drivers to collectively bargain. So that I have always wondered since this time last year why this AB 1340 didn't come around right away. But I found out the reason why. I looked up the frickin' bill, and it's got to be at least, well, you said Mike.
Karen's probably going to be mad at me for making her go through that.
But I think it's more than 10,000 words because I understand that they even amended it above and beyond what it was a couple of weeks ago. The previous version would have had the State Labor and Workforce Development Agency oversee ride-hail driver unionization efforts rather than this Public Employment Relations Board. I mean, none of it makes sense to me because independent contractors are not allowed to collectively bargain and unionize because they're independent contractors. They're not employees. So how is it that a state can come in and create a board that supersedes the National Labor Relations Act even, because they think the National Labor Relations Act, which governs, collective bargaining between, with enterprises. This is more like sectorial bargaining. Kim can talk more about of that. It's collective bargaining that applies to an entire industry. And then they create this board of who knows who I can just picture the board. Lorena Gonzalez, Vina Duval, Nicole Moore, all of the usual suspects will be the ones that, make all these determinations for, 100% of the drivers. It's just
and that right there is another, listen, we don't even need to, I mean, we can, if we get to it, but you and I were discussing the Massachusetts numbers are a joke. I happen to think the California number is just as big a joke. 10%.
10%.
I mean, now Massachusetts is 5%, just so you guys know. If 5% of the drivers that whatever, again, just like active time, whatever they consider out of active drivers. So now it's like, wait a minute, are you just going to make what you call active drivers be enough so that 10% are represented, even if it's only 50 people kind of thing? Like, where does this end? Because honestly, 10%. So they're saying that if 10% of the drivers who are active, now there's 1.4 million gig app drivers in California. So they would need 140,000 to say that. I doubt you're going to get it because it's always these small groups, but nonetheless, 10% will make the decision for all of you.
Right. And the 10% are the people that are already organized by the SEIU and the unions because unions wrote the bill. All you have to do is open up the bill and read it. Assembly person Becky Wicks didn't write the bill. She knows jack shit about all of this. Yeah. It's all union speak. I mean, it's
You know,
just
often that gets said on this podcast by you. I think Kim has said it. I know Mike Harubi has said it, that he'll like know specific people and he'll go, she didn't write that. That was written by the unions. Like, I'm going, she's got her name on it, you know, like.
well, there's.
But I
that
mean,
is
it's weird how I always learn from you guys, and that's something I've learned. I'm really surprised by that. It's always somebody's stamp, but they didn't really do it.
Well, let me give you a little bit of a summary of what the bill says.
Please do. And guys, listen to this, because so AB5, that, just killed careers, like even Karen's, other people's.
It still kills careers.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't get fixed.
No.
Prop 22 was the exemption, or like a carve out that they gave to other people. And now.
No, Prop 22 is the exemption just for rideshare and delivery.
Right. But there were, I guess I should have said, but there were carve outs for anesthesiologists or lawyers, or, I mean, there were instant carve outs. Of course, you're not going to be held to this accountability.
Right. Carve outs to anesthesiologists and people. I mean, and yet a licensed pharmacist can't get a carve out, but a doctor can get a carve. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is completely.
So the whole thing, exactly. The whole thing where we're at right now is ridiculous. But wait, now Karen's going to explain AB 1340. And I want you all I really do want to see some comments here, because we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on YouTube. And between all three, we're at 47 people watching live right now. That's pretty good for the middle of the day. So between the three platforms, so please comment.
Now, keep in mind that this bill would have to, even if it passed and was signed by Governor Newsom, it would have to withstand a ton of litigation, because it remains to be seen if independent contractors are allowed to collectively bargain without violating antitrust rules and all the rest. But be that as it may, the bill says that the state would require Uber and Lyft, just rideshare, not delivery. It doesn't involve the delivery drivers. It only involves rideshare, Uber and Lyft drivers, on a quarterly basis, to give the Public Employment Relations Board. I'd like to know who's on the board. And who
won't they just decide that once they know which ones they want to be on the board, so that they can make the decisions that they tell them?
Make decisions about people's lives. A list of all California they have to give the board a list of all California ride-hail drivers who have provided at least 20 rides in the preceding 6 months.
And they have to do it every 90 days.
Yes, quarterly basis. The board would use that data to determine the median number of rides given by that pool of drivers. Any driver who gave at least the median number of rides would be considered an active driver. An organization seeking to form a drivers union could then start the process by getting at least 10% of active drivers to authorize it to act as their representative. Sure. After passing that hurdle, and after PERB is Public Employment Relations Board, PERB, validates that the organization had reached that threshold, the state would require the board to hand over to the organization the names and contact information of all active ride-hail drivers in the state, including their mailing address and their physical address, which would hello. You know how unions operate. They can come and knock on your door and bully the fuck out of you. The organization could only use that information to inform drivers about unionization efforts and to encourage them to support it. The bill would require PERB to recognize a union if 50% of active drivers authorize an organization to act as their representative. The bill would also require the board to recognize a union if as few as 30% of active drivers authorized it, but only if another organization had also gained the authorization of 30% of active drivers, or 30% of active drivers had submitted, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't even understand it.
No, you're starting to sound like the commercials for like a medication where they got to give the exemptions at the end.
Yeah, the previous version of the bill 2 weeks ago, because it keeps changing, right? Would have had the State Labor and Workforce Development Agency oversee ride-hail driver unionization efforts. How does that make sense? Because Prop 22 is not in the Labor Code of California. Prop 22 is in the Business and Professions Code.
Mm-hmm.
So They call it the Labor Relations Act, something or other, AB 1340. Labor is about employees. These are independent contractors. I just don't get it.
Yeah. And Prop 22 was clarifying that. You are still an independent contractor. There's just some changes to that.
You will still be, nothing about this bill changes the worker status.
Right. It doesn't. Right. It doesn't even mention that. In fact, some people even said, "Well, Prop 22 is still going to be in place." I'm like, exactly. That's the problem. You're like, how does all this work?
Yeah, but in the original Prop 22, they put something in there about app-based drivers. The bargain, making an amendment to the Prop 22 that would allow for collective bargaining would have to pass by a 7/8 majority in California, which is like a super, super, super majority. It's impossible to pass. And so can a so-called union bargain for drivers' wages when the wages of 20% of minimum wage is already baked into the law? You would have to actually go in.
That was one of the questions I was going to
law.
get to with you today. So let's just hit it now. Honestly, what are let's say that all this were to happen, this craziness. And I know that some people are going, this couldn't all happen. That's what everybody said about AB5. So let's just say it all did. And by January, this happens. What would the union's role be? Because I've seen the wording about, well, Uber, we would have to deal with the union. Like, so what? You're not going to do anything. There's nothing to do.
Well,
it just means the unions obviously, look, guys, I mean, like, no matter if you like a union or don't like a union, we all can agree, because it's fact, they take your money. They don't work for free. That's a fact.
Yes, it would require probably union membership dues.
Well, of course it would, or else why would the unions even care about this?
And that's what these bills, like in Massachusetts, I mean, I've read a few things where, the real motivation behind this is to corral as many people as you can into a union so that you can collect union dues to support your flailing unions. So it's just, Prop 22 already established 120% minimum wage. So how are they going to fight for increased wages for drivers when it's already baked into the law? You'd have to physically actually, and another thing that I don't get, when Prop 22 was being challenged by SEIU, the unions, it was the state of California that was arguing to uphold Prop 22 because it was incumbent upon the state and the attorney general here to uphold the will of the voters. Well, now that Prop 22 has been basically upheld, except for that tiny little provision where they can, get that little collective bargaining thing in there. Mm-hmm. Now the state is all doing backflips, try to get this through.
Yeah.
And it really does violate this whole spirit of Prop 22 to begin with. But on the other hand, you're saying that, there's always going to be complaining. What avenue do drivers have to really, get changes through with the platforms, changes about things that they don't like about their working arrangements?
Well, I mean, I think I've said this to you. Maybe it's been a minute. So let me just tell you, like, here in Colorado, it's not perfect, but we have the transparency laws. No, we didn't battle for any money, but I think that's a good law, that the receipt has to be transparent. The same receipt has to go to you, the customer, as me, the driver. So you're going to see what I'm paid, because that's a big deal. I think that's okay, because drivers also need to see the full pay, because like DoorDash is notorious for this, and I'll explain it to you, Karen. They will say that this order pays $6.50 plus. That plus means there's a hidden tip that they know about, but they're not showing you. Now they also use driver metrics and things too. All those have had to disappear in Colorado, because you have to present the offer. You have to be transparent. Here's the offer. Here's the work. Here's the pay. The only thing I have left that I'm complaining about is remove the driver metrics. You can't have tiers and stuff on independent contractors. You're platinum, you're aluminum, you're diamond, send me offers, because this is how it always was in the beginning with rideshare and everything else. Closest person to the restaurant gets the order. So the good drivers knew where to be and when. And if your market's oversaturated, just be the better driver and stay out there and grind until the other ones turn off. That's what you had to do.
Maybe there is an opportunity, a silver lining in this if it passes, that gives drivers the opportunity to collectively bargain about things like that.
But they won't. That's the people I know in California. The people I know in California are really looking at this more as like, I just want more money. We all want more money. Look at the millionaires want more money, guys. What you really should be caring about is if you really can. A lot of them came from W-2 status. They've never been an independent contractor in their life. This is the first time they've ever been one. And what they don't understand is these metrics, these games, this gamification, as we call it on these apps, needs to be removed. These apps need to knock that off. You know what I mean? You can't say that, oh, your acceptance rate. What's an acceptance rate? You send me a bunch of $2 offers for 10 miles and I say, I wouldn't take that at all, ever. And you're holding that against me. That's See, this is where I think the gig apps just need to come a little straight, and a lot, maybe not in California so much, but in a lot of states, these problems go away if you just start being transparent. It's not a game ender. You're still going to have the business.
Well, it's hard for me to die on the rideshare hill and defend the business model, because they're always an albatross around my neck and Kim's neck and everybody else who's fighting for all of the independent contractors that are affected by these sweeping laws, you know, from
which includes me, by the way, you guys, and some of you know, but I do lasers, lighting, production. So since 1997, the gig apps were started in 2009 by Travis Kalanick in California only. Got to my market in 2014, but before 2014, for whatever that is, 13 years or 17 years, I was already doing production work. So I'm in the boat with them too.
But
I'm a traditional.
You would not be allowed to be an independent contractor doing that in California. You would have to be made an employee.
No, in fact, one of the people who works for or contracts with the laser company that I work for was going to be doing the Willie Nelson 90th birthday show in Hollywood last year. I flew out and did it because he can no longer contract.
I don't know how they got around that loophole of bringing in somebody from the outside who's an independent contractor. Because if you're working in
I think it was because, well, I mean, this could just be me, but a lot of times I do work for these type of things, and lasers especially don't go on full tours. They're just used for specific shows.
So maybe there was like a little.
It's hard to get a touring act down too. You know what I mean? Like a touring act that travels the world. Like, how are you gonna? It's really tough to lock them down on things.
Yeah, but if they were able to pass the single engagement live exemption for one thing.
Yeah, like a Gail Gordon, sure.
Under AB 5's, you know, Frankenstein web of exemptions that may or may not work out for you, then they wouldn't have needed to bring you in from Colorado.
I fully agree. I think in that case, though, it was just strictly a point of the company, as you and Kim and everybody else that's been on here has mentioned before, that the company that we work with is out of Florida. I think it was just one of those times where they're like, I don't really understand it. You're toxic. I can't work with you. So we're going to use Steve.
Yep. That's what happens.
So, because again, like if Willie Nelson's doing, I mean, I know this was his birthday, but if somebody's doing like 400 shows, like a Taylor Swift on a world tour and 2 are in California, good luck digging into the books.
Well, Californians have lost so much work to independent contractors in other states.
But I think I'm saying in my case, it wasn't so much as like, I can't work with you. I know this, but even though it is, but it was more of that, what I've heard from you guys, like, I don't really know. I just know you're toxic. I can't do this.
The point that I'm making, and that everybody needs to know, is that don't believe everything you read about AB5, because people get it in Prop 22, because people get it wrong. Just yesterday, I was reading a San Francisco Examiner article about Prop 22 that said Prop 22 overturned AB5 in its entirety. Really? No. Prop 22 only applies to rideshare and app-based delivery only. It doesn't apply to the entire gig economy. It's funny
that you said that, because lately I've been reading articles, even on the podcast, where I have to say, like, I'm telling you guys what I'm reading, and I'm putting the link in the show notes, but I have no clue what idiot wrote this.
They just regurgitate the same misinformation. It drives me nuts. And another thing that drives me nuts is, oh, AB5 isn't a problem anymore because there's 100 exemptions. No, look at the exemptions. They all come with fine print and caveats.
Yeah.
Some of them are clean, easy, straightforward exemptions, but a lot of them come with 6 to 12 different requirements that have to be met in order to take advantage of the exemption. So it's just a whole landmine of bullshit.
Yep.
AB5, and it continues to impact people to this day. And then you have people, hiring entities, getting audited. Just a single person, like a wedding photographer, getting audited for bringing on a second shooter to one event and saying that, oh, well, you misclassified them because you violated the A prong of, by telling them where to go and when to show up. That's considered control and direction. I mean, it's all just, it's just a nightmare. It's a Frankenstein monster, AB5, but the original target of AB5 was Uber and Lyft and all these delivery companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to write their own law. They get to exempt themselves not only from the ABC test of AB5, but the traditional Borello test that everybody still has to ultimately pass in order to be an independent contractor. And so they're in their own, they're not even in the labor code. They're in their own little business and professional code world. So how this bill, if it passes, all plays out in the courts, it'll be in litigation for years. It's because from what I understand, and maybe John or somebody can confirm this, but didn't Seattle try something like this, and it got in 2015 and it got rendered unconstitutional? And isn't Massachusetts having problems implementing their version of this that was passed by the voters? Actually, I think this was an initiative or a prop that, within Massachusetts. So it's remains to be seen how in the real world with this collective bargaining, if they're given the ability to do that and form a union, how it's going to, for example, not be the equivalent of price fixing that would violate antitrust laws, for example.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. So a week from today, what shouldn't have even been already moved from where it was kicked up to the next level. And AB 1340 will be looked at by, is it a Senate committee hearing? Or?
Yes, a couple of Senate committees, and then it gets voted on by the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the floor day, the last day for each chamber to pass bills, is September 12th. So we're talking, in less than a month, really, that we're going to find out what's the ultimate fate of this bill. But
so my guess is yes on next Tuesday. It doesn't mean anything's over, but do you see this getting passed on next Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's a super majority in California. They're all Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's only 2 or 3 Republicans in the Senate, of California's Senate. I mean, those are the only people that would, vote against this, especially since it passed in the Assembly. Now, whether Newsom signs it or not, he might take a look at it and say, this is a can of worms. This is half baked. This is just going to mire us in years of litigation.
Karen and I had, but we didn't,
Prop 22.
Karen and I disagreed yesterday while talking about this, because I said new scum will sign it, right? I mean, he'll just be giving it and here, sign it, done. What is it, screw over people? Sure, here.
What you have to understand about Gavin Newsom is all of his buddies are the Democrat elite in California were the ones that wrote Prop 22. LaFonza Butler, who he appointed to Dianne Feinstein's Senate seat, worked for Uber crafting Prop 22.
Yeah.
You tell me, Tony West was I don't know, he might still be the chief legal officer for Uber. Valerie Jarrett was the board of directors for Lyft.
Mm-hmm.
All of these, I can name a whole
all
bunch.
Those people are, what do you call it? Dirty laundry. Just kidding.
Well, the French Laundry. Yeah. So
French
I think,
Laundry.
and Gavin Newsom never came out for or against Prop 22 when it was the hot topic of the day. So I always assumed that he was working behind the scenes trying to get some kind of compromise. That's what he wanted to see. And that all of those little perks that we're talking about with the minimum wage and the, health stipend and all of those things were kind of just put in there to placate Democrat sensibilities and try to get this thing, get a hybrid sort of classification, status for rideshare drivers and delivery drivers. So what Gavin Newsom, whether he signs it or not, I don't know. I mean, is he really going to sit there and read 10,000 words of this freaking bill that was written by unions?
I don't know what it is. It's just the instinct part of me. This is no merit based. It's just my gut. I see him signing it because it's been argued for so long. It's just one of those things that's been so much of a headache to so few people, but they've made it so loud in such an obnoxious way. Like Karen mentioned a name that I don't even say anymore. I consider it taboo. So if Karen says it, she says it. I don't even say it anymore because once I found out she earned $200K a year and realized she wasn't in just jeans and a ripped t-shirt out there getting arrested every time there was a protest, I became very uninterested in this person.
Well, she's currently being quoted in all the most recent articles
my point.
Written by Cal Matters and
exactly my point.
Examiner.
It seems like whenever all the articles that need to come out about this stuff, I always see her in those quotes.
They don't interview anybody. They interview somebody from the Protect Drivers and App-Based Services Coalition. They will throw in a press release statement or something like that.
I know that she specifically is also a part of Gig Workers United out of LA, which is another
Rideshare Drivers United, I think is what it's called, or
no, whatever.
Union
is what it's called.
We call them the usual suspects. They show up at the hearings. They show up in the very slanted, biased reporting and media. Rideshare is evil. Rideshare this. Rideshare that. Well, if you hate it so much, Nicole, just leave. You are. I mean,
why is she going to quit her $200,000 job? Where it's like, I mean, she wears her scrubs to the people that see her, but really she has enough to live even in California pretty well at $200K.
She promotes herself as being exploited, put upon.
If you're making $200K, you shouldn't be saying you're exploited.
Marginalized communities. They have their formula and their narrative, and they stick to it, and it always creeps back up like.
But they do. I got to tell you, Karen, even the news articles never talk about what you said about where she really works. They never mention that. They always tie her to the group that is going to be best for the article they're writing. Never to what her real job is getting paid as a shill.
Yeah. No, and again, it points to the incestuous nature in Sacramento between unions and politicians. The unions are very, very powerful in California. The person who wrote and sponsored AB 5 left the assembly, Lorena Gonzalez, to become the leader of the California Labor Federation, which represents 1,300 unions in California and 2.1 million workers, more than the Teamsters.
That's a lot of unions.
This was the biggest coalition probably in the country. She was the one. She is the Dr. Frankenstein.
Yes.
She's the one that concocted all of this bullshit. And
but is she or is she the henchman?
Yes. No, she during the period when they were doing the cleanup bills, people were going to her office with their begging bowl, pleading and begging for an exemption from her. And if you could only get a seat at the table if you were a liberal, writer or a liberal, whomever. and she just, picked winners and losers, and that's a whole nother story for another day.
Well,
But
I don't even like that term because she picked what she picked and not the rest, not winners and losers, because there were a lot of winners that ended up being losers.
yes, that's true. It was arbitrary, capricious who gets to be an independent contractor and who gets to be exempt from her putrid, onerous law.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the states are, as Kim is mentioning, the states are the laboratory for the federal push on all of these things. They try to pretend like, oh, we're not going to make the same mistakes that California made with the infamous AB5. But in reality, what's going on in New Jersey is even worse than AB5.
Yeah. And you guys, I mean, I've been telling everybody for a long time. Sadly, the deadline to write in ended. I did make a short on the last day and I posted it. Hopefully, I know a lot of you did get your comments in, but that window is past now. Kim, if there are any other things that people can do to help, please drop anything in the chat, but I think we're past the windows now. I know we are on the big ones because Kim told me so.
Well, if I could just say one thing to your listeners about Prop 22, maybe you guys, there's a lot of people that don't like some of the things in it, and
Right.
and they blame their woes on Prop 22. But Prop 22, in essence, is that you can remain an independent contractor. All of those other things are just things that I don't know how you fight them out.
That's what I said to you too. I said, if I lived in California, I would, heck yeah, I wouldn't have even been a question. I would have voted yes on Prop 22 because losing that IC status would have ended it for me. Because again, here's where my mix comes in. I'm raising a son all by myself and I do laser work and production work. How could I be, if I was going to be defined as an employee, first of all, and I know every one of you, and I used to say most, but I know every one of you that watches this would never be a W-2 employee for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, none of them.
And Steve, refresh my memory about the percentile of people that and the hours that they have on average work per week. Isn't it something like
nationwide? So out of all the gig app workers on all of the gig apps, I think this study was done amongst the biggest ones. So not like the little caterings or this or that, but out of the Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhubs, Instacarts, all of those. So I'll start with the lowest. 65% of the gig app workers in the United States work 7 hours or less. 85% of gig workers in the United States work 14 hours or less. So only 15 are full-time, and what they call full-time is 30 hours a week or more. The people I know do gig work 60, 70 hours. So I don't know what the heck this is.
Well, see, and then the opposition characterizes the whole industry by what the full-time, the 15 percentile of workers or drivers are experiencing, as opposed to just your average person who wants to get on the app, for a couple of hours a week or whatever, just to help pay their grocery bill.
Clearly 65% of all of them. And there's, I mean, Senator Jack Cassidy from Louisiana and Rand Paul and Tim Scott are pushing this portable benefits thing. So I'm not going to go there, but what I am going to say is in their study, they said that there's 27 million app-based gig workers in this country. Right or wrong, there's a number we can work with. 65% of them work 7 hours a week or less.
So how you wouldn't be eligible for benefits if you were a W-2 employee working 7 hours a week?
Nope.
You wouldn't be eligible.
You're not eligible at the 85% who are 14 and under. You have to be, for the benefits to kick in, other than the 120% of active time, you have to be 20 hours or over.
Right.
So what? It maybe applies to 15% in California? Maybe.
Well, this bill 1340, it's just going to get mired in litigation. There's going to be lawsuits flying. It's going to be held up. It's going to be, I mean, and even if they got to the point, aren't they having trouble in Massachusetts with even getting 5%
Yeah.
of people
Yeah.
on board with collective
that
bargaining?
went, and ballot question 3 that you're referring to was passed last November. We're
Yes.
coming up on a year on that passing, and they can't get 5% of the drivers to sign up for the union.
Well, where's Nicole Moore when you need her over there in Massachusetts?
Probably counting her money like Scrooge McDuck in her little in her little pool of gold. I don't know. She doesn't ever seem to be around when it's really needed. She's around when they need noise. That's how I see it.
You know, it's a small minority of drivers who want to be employees and W-2 employees with full benefits. And even
Karen, I would also venture to say that most people who do the 7 hours or under aren't watching this podcast, don't hear this, and aren't even aware of it until it happens to them.
Right.
I mean, because if you're working 7 hours or less, clearly you have another job. You're not watching YouTube videos on how to put a bag at a door. You know what I mean? Like, you just go out one day a week for a little extra change and you work 5 hours on Saturday. But that's on top of your 40-hour week. You're not like studying how to do those 5 hours. You just go do it.
I just don't see how a collective bargaining arrangement would work for such a disparate, you know, collective of drivers that work, you know, not even, I mean, less than part-time.
Well, that's because they don't, if you've ever noticed, you've never heard the person whose name I won't say, who we've said a few times, I just won't. But I mean, here's the thing. They never mention the stats I just told you. They don't ever tell you that 85% of the gig economy works 14 hours or less. They don't even want that being out there. They hate that.
They don't want people to know that almost 80% of the drivers in California supported Prop 22 and want to remain independent contractors.
Yes.
So everybody's bad-mouthing Prop 22. You know, just be thankful that it exists, because otherwise you would be either not driving at all, or the companies would have left the state, or it would be some kind of weird arrangement where there's no way you could have the kind of flexibility and working terms that you have now, you know, despite all of the complaints.
So Adam is saying, cannot forget about are you talking about the elections that where the people voted for Prop 22 and now all this is happening? Because we've kind of we've tried to like brainstorm that one too. It's just like everything else. It's hard to wrap your head around it. Doesn't make sense, because how, you know, in a best case scenario, in my opinion, they just don't want the voters to notice that, hey, you voted on this, but we're really tweaking it out because you didn't vote correctly.
Well, you know, I mean, and here in California, there's like over 130,000 licensed manicurists that just lost their temporary exemption from AB5, and they can't rent booths anymore. They have to be made employees by the salons. So, you know, there's a whole push to try to get them a more permanent exemption that the rest of the beauty industry has from AB5 if you're licensed, you know. So it's AB5 continues to just inflict pain on a whole sorts of sectors of the economy, and people aren't aware of it until it starts to hurt you directly.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's what, you know what, it's still been in my brain this whole time. Maybe that's what I was trying to get at before, is that if AB5 were overturned, doesn't all this go away?
AB5?
Yeah.
If it were repealed?
Yeah. I mean, would Prop 22 even still be would that even be a thing, or would that be gone?
No, because Prop 22 is in the business and professional codes, and AB5, which became AB 2257, is in the labor code. It's labor code 2777 to 2785 or something like that. But Prop 22.
But there's language about AB5 in there.
Well, AB5. Well,
which
AB5
then wouldn't be a thing, so it's not applicable.
AB 2257 replaced AB5.
Oh.
Most of AB5 in the AB5 was labor code 2750.3. When
2257 was because of extra carve outs, but now I'm starting to think it's because it also then now would kill what I'm talking about.
Well, then you have to go back to the dynamics decision of 2018, that's where they established the ABC test as it applies to wage orders. And it's a whole, trying to pull something out by the root and the vine. And then you still have the existing Borello standard, which is a more flexible test. But they're saying rideshare doesn't even pass that. So, they're always going to go after rideshare. It's like the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Who are those guys? Rideshare is never going to be able to escape them. They're always going to have somebody on their tail, trying to, create new laws or amendments or propositions or whatever. And it's really their own, and it makes it hard for me because I'm not defending rideshare in its entirety.
No, I trust me, I know you're not. And a lot of people aren't familiar, like I said in the beginning. And Kim, don't feel bad, but Karen has also been on the podcast 10 times now. So she's in double digit club too. But like I was saying in the beginning, we left a lot out because we've talked about it so many times. So you guys can go back and check. If you just search in YouTube, Rideshare Rodeo, Karen Anderson, or Rideshare Rodeo AB5, you're going to see like 9 videos with Karen and I come up. Get a lot more background if you're looking for it.
Well, the Protect App-Based Drive Routes and Services Coalition stated that the legislation would undermine the industry, violate the privacy rights of drivers by handing over their personal information. That is true. I mean, that is outrageous that unions can do that, including mailing addresses to union organizers and set up an undemocratic unionization process. To me, that's not just hyperbole. To me, that is exactly, they're stating the facts. That's what this bill would do. And it would just end up in instant litigation. And the people that are paying for the litigation, for the state to litigate this, are the taxpayers. And just
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know what else to say, because if it does pass, I think you and I made a joke because in one of the, I have it right here, but I think I would have to look if it's from, but I think it's Cal Matters. But a group that represents Uber and Lyft has said that California drivers earn, now remember guys, most of active time is when you are engaged in work, and then real time is when you are on the app. So you know, because this comparison uses both. So a group that represents Uber and Lyft said that California drivers earn $37 per active hour, while UC Berkeley Labor Center found that in real time they make $9.09.
Well, I thought they said,
but if you're on the app for 10 hours and you only work for 4, you can't say that you worked 10 because you didn't.
I know.
You just sat there. There weren't customers or whatever. You were passing on offers. But the funny part of the joke that I made to Karen yesterday is I said, the funny thing is, what about when that 120%, take the taxes out, take the union dues out? Oddly, UC Berkeley Labor Center is pretty close with the $9.09 to your take-home pay, if all this unionization and crap were to go through. And that would all be to run your own car into the ground. So you're fighting for $9.09. Good job, guys.
Do you want to pay union dues? Because that's what they're after.
That's absolutely what I would hope that anybody watching this knows that. If anybody thinks the unions do anything for free, and I'm not just union bashing, I'm not. But if you think the unions do anything for free, you need to go look into that more.
And if you think that the drivers on our side of the mentality of the way of thinking of what needs to change with the platform are going to be the ones that are going to be in charge of the union and the collective bargaining, you're out of your mind, because the SEIU and the big tentacles of all of that, they're going to push all of those people out of the way, and they're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to take control and take charge. Yeah.
I mean, I don't, and then so, yeah, I mean, and then I just have to go back to it one more time. Like, so again, I question anybody watching this on the replay or now into the live chat, whatever, to put what you think the unions could even do if they were put in place in California. Again, I don't think they can do anything for you. You're going to be Prop 22. You're
Well,
still an independent contractor, so that you can't have a union,
well,
but you're
and
going to have one, so you're going to have to pay them. But what my question is, what are they going to do for you?
if it's about wages, that has already been upheld as
That's
constitutional,
my point.
and it's in the code.
That's
So
my
then
point.
have
So
to
what are you
actually
paying the union for?
exactly.
I mean, this fact of them going, it would be different if none of this other stuff existed. And if this were the first time this was ever being discussed, is they'd come in as unions and represent you, but there's nothing to represent you about.
Right.
I mean, there is nothing. Everything's in the code. What are they going to do? Say, give them more active time. The platforms can't create more customers.
And then in the meantime, you're still left with being, with these platforms kind of, doing shady things that where do you have a say in how do drivers rise up and, like what you were talking about, metrics, get that changed? How do they demand a change?
Well, since our transparency, we're pushing for that right now. And we're actually getting closer with them, because I think they're finding they've never wanted to be transparent, but I think here in Colorado, they're finding out that sending me a lot less data is costing them a lot less. Like, they know the offers I won't take, so why throw them at me and make me decline it so I lose an acceptance rating? I think what they're finding is, we used to throw you 20 an hour and you decline 19. Now they're like, we throw you 3 an hour and you're taking 2 out of every 3. Yeah, because you know what I take. Why wouldn't you just do it that way? Because for those that don't know, I've been saying this a lot lately, data farms and data costs are at the all-time high right now. Every piece of data being sent by these companies costs them so much. To cut that down to a third or even a quarter, that is actually a major millions, if not billions of dollars of profit.
Well, and we haven't even talked about driverless cars like Waymo.
Yeah. Well, Levi Spires and I covered that pretty well a couple of weeks
So
back.
what is these drivers unions? Is SEIU going to go after those and say, oh, they're,
I think that's kind of part of the threat, because you guys have more Waymos and you're getting crews back here soon. I've had the cruise engineers on, like, they know it's just a joke, because, they have to in-house insure, because I've had insurance agents on the podcast before from Allstate, and I've talked to people from State Farm and Geico, but it's an all or nothing game. They don't know how to insure those autonomous cars. So they have to, if it's driverless. So sometimes even Waymos have the drivers in them, like in Vegas. That doesn't count. That's different. But in Arizona, there was a 2-year period, and I'll just use this one example, where there were 212 accidents involving autonomous vehicles. Of those 212, 71 of those incidents were the fault of the Waymo, not the other person. Okay, so
I believe that.
That's about 30%, 33%. It's about a third. It's about 33%. No ticket has ever been issued in Scottsdale, Phoenix, or Tempe, where they operate in Arizona. No ticket ever during those 3 years. None of those 71 were ticketed to Waymo, because in Arizona, you can't ticket a driverless car. The police officers have even said that.
Yeah, because there's no one to sign the ticket.
Well, but in California, they can ticket the person who's monitoring the car.
Oh, yeah.
But in Arizona, you can't. They're just
monitoring the car, be sued for sexual harassment by a passenger.
And that's the thing too. All the cameras are broke. The maintenance these things would take. I mean, they use Jaguar I-Pace. They use Chrysler Pacifica, and then they have this $125,000 LiDAR camera suite. So you're about $250,000 on just the car. Then they have to install it and test it on each car. That's about $50,000. Now you're at $250 to $300, and then you have the maintenance. People puking in them, having sex in them. So what are you going to clean them between every trip? How's this working? You have to pay an employee to monitor that car and drive it. You have to. It's so ridiculous. I don't even want to keep going, because when Levi Spires and I did the live, we had the cost at about $450,000, $500,000 per autonomous vehicle. Plus you're paying an employee to deal with it. And the LiDAR is good for 3 to 5 years, depending on weather. That LiDAR alone is $80,000. So you're going to be replacing that. I mean, and You know,
And
Karen,
not
you
only
live
that,
there.
you have
Waymos get
vandalism.
trashed all the time. Even like from the
my God.
exterior, people paint them, tag them, beat them.
Beat them.
So
Yep.
it's a joke. It is a joke. I think to me, it's kind of like, well, we'll just go driverless if you guys are going to have unions. But they're not really ready for that yet, because that's all some very sketchy underground dealings. Like Atlanta, Arizona, California, and soon to be Dallas. Those are the real, I mean, you might see one or two here and there in other cities, but like in Vegas, I took a Waymo. It had 2 operators in the front. So, I mean, like, that's not driverless. So in the cities, they're actually, I mean, when they're like, we're going to be driverless tomorrow. No, you're not, because you're operating in 4 to 6 cities that are taking a lot of money from you, illegally or not, shady for sure, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, Newsom, San Francisco is the perfect example to me. Newsom took a bunch of money to allow them to test in San Francisco. The mayor, the police department, and the fire department want them gone.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, you just hear all the horror stories about.
And for some reason, Waymos and cruises, this is a big one with the fire department. For some reason, they don't tend to do this at I don't know what it is. Again, you got to learn this stuff from these companies, but for some reason, they like to park where fire trucks would come out of. And so the fire trucks in San Francisco, on several occasions, you guys can Google this, just plow right through them. They don't care. They just drive right through them.
Poor little Waymo.
Really? I consider it stupid,
They're like
Waymo, and I'm glad you got plowed by the fire truck.
They're like the pet rocks of the rideshare.
Poor little Waymo. Don't ever say that, because you know what? It's all venture capitalists, and none of them are poor.
We've got some comments coming into the chat.
Oh, yeah. Have the whole time.
I haven't seen any flash across the screen.
Oh, I just turned it on down there. I hadn't had it on. So
we've been ignoring some questions.
Oh, I think every time I've looked down, John and Kim are in there pretty actively.
Yeah.
And they're kind of, if anybody has had a comment that we didn't cover, please put it back in there now. Didn't mean to miss anything. I was just focused on talking with Karen. So
that's very interesting to hear your take on the Waymos, because in Santa Monica, the neighborhood is complaining about the backup noise in the parking lot where they keep the Waymos.
Yeah,
all night
I heard
long.
about that, like, and that they go all night.
Yeah, they go all night.
And they're just...
And it's just like, it's enough to drive you crazy.
I mean, but I mean, again, look at the cost that I just said. They're saying, hey, rideshare drivers, you're going to be gone tomorrow. Again, I always say the moving target, because I've been doing this for a long time. Since 2018, Derek Hashashawi has said that driverless vehicles will replace drivers the next year, every year.
Yeah.
And now Derek finally came out. This was a weird statement from him, and I got to say it. Derek came out and finally said, in 2040, 80% of delivery on Uber Eats will be done by delivery robots, those little 4-wheel piece igloos that you guys got in LA, the Coco Robotics or Starship Robotics that travel around with the little flag and stuff. Those things cost $12,000 to $17,000, and they say they have a lifespan of 3 years. But I know people that beat them with baseball bats, throw them in the river, steal the food. I know that some people have hijacked them in trunks and taken them out to the woods and left them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so comical to me that people do this. I know it's breaking a law, but to me, I got to say it's pretty funny, because, I mean, it does have a little orange flag, and there is they have to have these orange flags, but there's a big thing about kids chasing them into the road.
Yeah, I mean, they're just a target ripe for vandalism.
Yeah.
And then, and the same holds true with the trucking industry. The truckers are very worried about autonomous truck drivers, trucking coming into the mix of their industry as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Prop 22. It's a double-edged sword. Obviously, it's a love-hate relationship that drivers have with Prop 22. But at least you can be an independent contractor with Prop 22, and it doesn't repeal AB 5.
So as Kim's saying here, when you were about the comments, Kim and I said Kim and John were in the comments, and she's like, "We all work for Steve." No, I can't employ people. I'm an independent contractor. So, but Adam, what is worst, elections or the new labor law? I think he might be talking. See, again, I think he might be talking to Kim, because I would be jumping in the end of that conversation because they've been chatting. I've been seeing it off to the side. So,
well, I mean, that about covers it for,
okay.
you know,
I was going to ask you if we had covered everything.
Well, it's always just when you're talking about AB5, it's always the tip of the iceberg. We barely talked about Lorena Gonzalez and all of her dastardly deeds.
But again, I would tell anybody, just go to YouTube, put Rideshare Rodeo space Karen Anderson, and you'll find 9 other lives. And we definitely talk about Lorena and every other one a lot.
Yes, we do.
So it's not like
we have a whole podcast devoted to debunking Vina Dubal, the law professor, and all of her misstatements.
Yeah, I guess my point is just go put into YouTube or Google and search Rideshare Rodeo Karen Anderson, and you'll find YouTube videos that come up, and you'll find one that grabs your attention.
Look, it's complicated, and a lot of people's eyes glaze over when you start talking about the details, but the details matter with AB5 because it is such a, I mean, it's just such a piece of legislation that is just mired in legalese and landmines and everything.
And that's
else.
why I said and I did put it in the live chat too, but it was before I put it up on the thing. I put your blog roll about the 608 careers that were destroyed by AB5.
There's 608 careers that are impacted in one way or another by AB5.
I call it destroyed, but
yeah, but they weren't
can call it impacted
completely. But if you want to read all the testimonials from across hundreds of professions, there's a blog roll that of all these testimonials from people, everybody from dog walkers to notary publics to real estate appraisers to forensic nurses and theatrical people and dancers and healthcare workers, nurse anesthetists, everybody under the sun that you can think of, fly fishing guides, hole cleaners, farriers, sheep shearers, everything. AB5 was just like a wrecking ball, and it continues to be a wrecking ball on traditional independent contracting relationships. Because just because you're a doctor who or a lawyer who has an exemption doesn't mean that you can engage with a paralegal as your independent contractor who doesn't have an exemption. So it affects everybody in some certain type of way.
Yeah. In fact, just like the last one, here it is. I just posted it into all of the chats across all 3 platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and here.
Yes.
But these are what she's talking about. And earlier I posted the other one about the careers. But these are very impactful people. If you want to go read, because these are the kind of stories that'll maybe even help you. You'll click with all of them, but maybe you'll really click with 1 or 2, and it'll help you understand a little better some of the things we talk about here.
Right. And I might add too that your listener might be thinking, well, why should I be concerned about that in California? We're just talking about rideshare here. Mm-hmm. Well, what's happening is they go after rideshare and delivery as a target, as an excuse, and then they create these blanket laws that cover everybody so that they can control the entire independent workforce, not just the gig apps. And that's what's happening right now in New Jersey, and Kim's been fighting that tooth and nail.
I've even asked you when you're on before, I've made the comment, and we just can't prove it, but I still in my heart believe that I believe AB5 was originally going after gig work. And then it said, why not just cast the net over everybody? Screw them.
Well, that is what happened. Lorena Gonzalez wrote AB5 to expand the ABC test of the dynamics decision beyond the wage order jobs to cover every provision of the labor code and the unemployment insurance code, thereby entrapping every single worker, no matter who you are, doctor, lawyer, farmer, whoever you are. Mm-hmm. AB5 established a classification test that says you are an employee unless you can prove otherwise or you have an exemption. And it's just a mishmash of bullshit and stuff that just is continually having to get litigated, and eventually people give up and they just lose their careers or they move out of state.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that is really the case. I know truckers and things who have moved out of state. Again, if you Google Rideshare Rodeo and Karen Anderson, you will find ones where we've specifically probably talked about any given topic that we're just mentioning quickly here today at length. So between all the time she's been on, we're not always talking about the same thing. Today was supposed to be around AB 1340, but there's no way to talk about that without at least mentioning the others. But if you go dig deeper, there's other stuff we've discussed on here at length.
Right, including opera houses, nonprofits, art groups, coaches, cancer
and true 20-year nonprofits in California. I mean, we know one specific who's been on this podcast a couple times.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, my friend Sylvia had to disband her beautiful opera company up in the Bay Area solely because of AB5. She tried to comply. She tried to put everybody on payroll, but year after year, it just cannot be done in the opera profession. And AB5 does not allow anybody in a musical theater production to be an independent contractor, whether you work for a second, an hour, a day, or a week. You have to be put on payroll. And so it's very strict in certain, segments like musicians, or the spa industry is completely wellness, massage therapists. Just name anybody and everybody you can think of who
theater.
is a contractor. Theater.
Oh my God. I looked through the theater stuff because I do production. My God, they're all in there. In fact, they all have different entries. It's like
lighting directors, casting, people, location scouts, you name it.
Yep. YouTube creators.
Indie filmmakers. Yes, Emily D. Baker, actually very famous YouTube content creator. She left California because of AB5, and she sounded the alarm right after it passed that YouTube content creators were going to have a hard time in California. That's in
And for those that have flown under the radar and maybe gone, well, no, I don't think that really happened. You just haven't been caught yet. Because I know people who have been caught, the fines aren't $13.
No, their fines
they're a lot.
You have to pay all sorts of people who are deemed to have misclassified an independent contractor could be subject to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Something Gail had told me is the minimal was like $15,000 to $35,000. Just entry level fines.
Well, those are the civil ones. Those aren't. Right. That doesn't even include the other ones, the wages, the penalties, the payroll taxes, the back pay, paying somebody's personal income tax, their lost benefits of that, their leave, their sick leave, their overtime, all of it. It all gets dumped on you if you're deemed to have misclassified one independent contractor. And I mean, I knew somebody that had a little video platform company that had 3 or 4 videographers, and they were going to hit her with a $700,000 fine on 3 of her videographers who wanted to be independent contractors anyways, who had their own press credentials, who picked their own shoots, film their own footage, charge their own rates.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the horror stories are in the audits of the hiring entities. Those are the people that they're going after. They're not going after me as the independent contractor. I'm the one that they think is exploited. So they're trying to.
But to the people that would hire you, you're toxic.
Right. And so by virtue of the fact that I'm toxic, I'm harmed because they terminate me. They can't contract with me as an independent contractor because they're afraid. Or it's not allowed anymore, depending on what your profession is. So AB5 is just, it's about a lot more than Uber and Lyft, but most of what you read in the media is about Uber and Lyft. They comprise about 5% of all the professions that are under the purview of AB5, yet they get 90% of the media.
However, Karen, I would have probably, maybe, I don't know, but I might have never met you, Kim, and all these others without the connection. So therefore, they've helped me to get that word out. They've helped some good people to make people understand what this actually did and all of its ramifications.
No, you've given us a great platform for raising awareness and getting the word out and trying to correct all the misinformation out there about these attacks on our freedom to be our own bosses. I mean, it's just un-American. And what happened in California is just, like you said, horror story after horror story.
That's why I put them in there, guys. I mean, read them if you want. Read just a few. Get in there and read a few.
Translators, interpreters, entire segments, entire professions have been wiped out by AB5, like the transcription industry, or even online tutoring. You can't do online tutoring in California.
Or
supposedly,
I mean, there's just too many. Read some of the personal stories. Read the careers. The 2 blog rolls are in the description. Go check out Karen's group. Do not even try and troll it. They have way too many smart people in that group. You'll be gone so quick you won't even know what happened. But feel free to go in there. I know Karen's always said you're more than welcome to join. And the link is also below to that.
The only trolls that we ever got was the lead up to Prop 22.
Yeah.
Then they all started coming in.
But you never know. Somebody catches this, and AB 1340 is in the news right now, and they come in and they're like, AB 1340.
Right. AB 1340 is not getting a whole lot of media attention. It's just
I think that's part of what scares me.
Yeah. Unlike Prop 22, which was on the headlines every single day leading up
exactly. But even AB 5, nobody knew about it till it was law.
Well, a lot of people didn't know about it. A lot of people did, and they were fighting it tooth and nail, but it was too late.
But I mean, am I wrong in saying way more than not had no idea?
If you walk down the street now and ask random 10 people if they know what AB5 is, and they'll tell you no. What is that? Oh, I thought it was repealed. If they know of, if they've heard
I would
of it.
wonder if you asked 10 independent contractors randomly in California, how many do you think of the 10 would say they know what AB5 is?
If they lost their gig
if they haven't yet, though, if I found 10 people that were still doing what they had prior to it, and I put them in a lineup.
Well, because the Employment Development Department in the state of California is understaffed, so they haven't been enforcing it as rigorously as they could and wanted to. So therefore, there's this false sense of security amongst people, and then they sort of slip back to going into business as usual. And then you're saying, well, wait a minute, court reporters don't have an exemption from AB5. What do you mean we don't have an exemption? We're doing business as usual. Nobody stopped us. Well, that's because you've been lucky.
Yeah. Yep.
You've been flying under the radar. It's only when you get caught.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm wondering how many. I mean, honestly, if I asked you that, I always have these end of stream questions. So let me ask you that. If I found 10 people who have just been operating since, and you asked them one-on-one at a time, they all from different places, different things that they do independently. If you said, do you know what AB5 is? And they're still doing business as they did in 2019. How many of them do you think would say, yeah, I know what it is?
None of them.
None of them. There you go. I mean, that's there it is, right?
The onus is on the hiring entity, the independent contractor.
They should, I mean, it's just, I'm just pointing out, it's just sad they don't know.
They would know if their hiring entity told them they couldn't work with them anymore because it's against the law.
But there is a question right there. Do a lot of them find out that, or do they just not get a gig and it gets given to somebody else and maybe they don't say anything? Because if you're a hiring entity, how many words do you want to put into this too? Because you don't want to say, hey, it's illegal for me to, you could have a lawyer writing you back about something so, I mean, do they really tell everybody? I'm sure some do, but do they tell everybody?
You take your chances as a hiring entity if you have anybody as a 1099.
Yeah.
Because if for whatever reason you get audited, and some of the triggers for audits is your independent contractor may apply for unemployment insurance, traditional unemployment insurance benefits, and name you as an employer by mistake, that triggers an automatic audit. Or a competing company could say, look, this isn't fair. They're hiring independent contractors, and I'm trying to comply with AB5, and they could be turned in for that, or worker, some workers' comp issue or something, anything could trigger an audit, and then you would be in a world of hurt.
Yes.
And even people who are families, like people that are hiring nannies under the table or caregivers for their elderly parent under the table, all of those people cannot be independent contractors. You, as an individual, would have to put that person on payroll and pay all of this workers' comp and all of these benefits and overtime and everything else. It's could, because domestic workers, nannies, babysitters, even,
Mm-hmm.
they're all listed as being employees, considered employees in California.
Mm-hmm.
So it affects everybody, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. So, with that said, I don't know. Is there any final words here, guys? By the way, Kim Cavan is in here too. Check out freelancebusting.com. I'm just going to say that. I'll just leave it at that. If you haven't, you've probably seen Kim on here before, but check out freelancebusting.com. She writes amazing stuff. There's amazing stuff on so much content over there. If you don't see it, the first article isn't your cup of tea, just scroll down a bit. You'll find something that is going to be like, wait, I want to read this.
Kim is the co-founder of Fight for Freelancers USA. She recently spoke before the U.S. Senate Help Committee about freelance busting, and she came up with the term.
Yep.
And she and I spoke before a committee before the U.S. House of Representatives back in 2023. And she also is leading the charge against all of on a national scale, I would say. And of course, she was right with us in the trenches during all of the AB5 fight, dating all the way back to 2020.
Yep.
Kim Cavan was always around. And so she saw with horror and witnessed what was going on in California. And then it ended up coming to New Jersey, and they tried to
stop it.
They did. And now it's rearing its ugly head again in New Jersey. But she has the data and she knows how to fight the fuckery and round up the troops and get people out there to go to these public hearings and sound the alarm on what they're trying to do in 100%. New Jersey, which is even worse than AB5, and it's by regulation. They wanted to make a regulation. They're wanting to make a regulation that doesn't even have exemptions at all. Yeah.
So you guys check out Kim, who's in the chat. Also, for sure, check out Karen. Her, even if it's the blog rolls, but if you want to check out her group on Facebook, all of those are below, and they say above them the same things kind of that I was writing in the chat when I was posting the links. But go down there and check them out. You absolutely should be reading it. You should be taking a look at these, because they will grab you, and something will help bring a little perspective. Because when I end up getting questions, some of the best ways to answer those questions are giving you some perspective. Sometimes that might come from somebody that's not me, come from that blog roll. Go read some horror stories.
Yeah, because it could come to a town near you.
Yeah. In fact, it could and very likely could, and then not too far off in the future too.
Well, they're fighting it in Minnesota. They're fighting it in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
They're fighting it in New Jersey again.
Mm-hmm.
We're continuing the fight in California.
Yep.
It's, if you become complacent, these people will come in and try to maneuver their way any way they can, either via, regulatory language or, ballot initiatives, which is apparently what happened in Massachusetts, deceiving the voters.
Mm-hmm.
Or, with these task forces and legislation and ABC tests. If you hear the word ABC test, you better run straight to your representative and start complaining.
Yeah, if you see ABC test, it has nothing to do with having kids. So take a look at it.
It's like Roundup. It's going to poison you.
Mm-hmm. It's basically saying, hey, this thing over here is a test that nobody can pass. So you're screwed.
No, not only will it destroy you, it will spread and metastasize.
Yeah.
And in ways that you could never even imagine, and even the legislators, frankly, never could have imagined. Other than the unions know that they want to take over the entire independent workforce because they need those union dues.
100%. But again, I don't want to rehash it, but I do. Anybody put in the comments, I want to say I dare you, but please put in the comments what a union would, if you live in, especially if you live in California, but you don't have to if you're a gig worker. Knowing that all that we just talked about, what would a union do for you? Because you're going to be paying union dues. So what are they going to do for you? I'm just curious, because the way we just broke it down, there's nothing they can do for you. Everything's in place. You're an independent contractor. Here's Prop 22. That's how it works. That's constitutional. So what's the union going to do other than take your money? We already know they're going to take your money, so you got to put something other than that. Put it in the comments below.
Bingo.
And with that said, thank you, Karen. Thank you, everybody, for watching on all
Thank you,
platforms. And we will see you back here next time.
Yes.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Bye.
She was just a baby.